Welcome and talking NBA Finals. Ninja here with Chris Walder from OddsShark, and of course, former NBA big man, former UNC Tar Heel John Henson. And I mean, it's not a final that anyone out there would have expected, and we'll get into more of that in a moment. But in terms of odds, the Oklahoma City Thunder around, sort of minus 700, depending on the sports book, to win this thing. And according to The Athletic, Oklahoma City, the seventh largest favorite in NBA Finals history. And just for a fun fact, the last time a team was minus 700 to win the finals, the underdog won that season. That would have been the Detroit Pistons back in 2004, as you see there. Lots to talk about today. We'll get into picks at the bottom. We'll talk MVP as well, NBA Finals MVP. But I want to start with you, Chris. Like I said, or like I alluded to, I don't think anyone is shocked that the Oklahoma City Thunder are here in the NBA Finals, but definitely more of a surprise to see the Indiana Pacers. So if, Chris Walder, you are surprised to see the Pacers here, answer this question for me. They are the most surprising team to reach the NBA Finals since who?
Well, I really want to say the 2019 Toronto Raptors made that huge trade for Kawhi Leonard, resulted in a championship, but that's technically not the correct answer. The right answer is the 2023 Miami Heat. They were 25th in offense that season. They won 44 games. They lost their initial play-in tournament game, but won the second one just to sneak in as the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. They went on to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, who were the number 1 seed, the New York Knicks, and the Boston Celtics, who were the number 2 seed, just to reach the finals that year. So Indiana, sure, they're surprising that they've gotten this far, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I personally picked the New York Knicks to win that series. Not the best pick in hindsight, considering how dominant Indiana looked. But the Pacers were in the conference finals last year. So them getting back to this point and then eventually to the NBA Finals, it's not a huge surprise to me personally. Looking back at some of the number 4 seeds who have been in the finals in recent memory, you have the 06 Mavericks. They lost to the Miami Heat that year. The 2010 Celtics lost to the Lakers. And then the 2018 Cavaliers lost to the Warriors that season as well. So number 4 seeds that have recently got to the finals doesn't really pan out well for them. But this is already one of the greatest seasons in franchise history. Shout out to Indiana for getting it done. But now they're running into the roadblock that is the best team in basketball.
And you're right, they've looked pretty good doing it and getting to this point. I want to ask both you guys this question, and John Henson, I'll start with you. John, you've been around the league, obviously. If the Pacers, and we can get into your picks at the bottom, but if the Pacers somehow, some way win this NBA Finals, would Tyrese Haliburton then become the greatest Indiana Pacer of all time, even surpassing Reggie Miller, as you see there?
I think that, with the way he's playing, I mean, you could even say Siakam could enter that conversation, right, if they were to win because he played so well. He got the MVP for Eastern Conference Finals. So, yes, Haliburton will become one of the Pacers' GOATs. He'd be looked at and revered as Reggie Miller. Think about how they revere him, and he never really got to the pinnacle, because of certain guys like Michael Jordan, the Ewings, and those type guys. So if Haliburton somehow, some way figures out a way to upset this kind of OKC team who we think is probably going to roll in this finals, he's got to be up there, man, as the guy in Pacers history to lead them to the promised land.
And you're right. Siakam has to be in that conversation as well, getting that Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Chris, your thoughts here. I know you're a bit of a newer school guy than myself, somebody that grew up watching Reggie, watching Rick Smits, watching the Davises, etc. But if the Pacers win, does Tyrese or does Spicy P usurp Reggie atop the Mount Rushmore for the Indiana Pacers?
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to do. I mean, Reggie Miller, he's one of those rare players who spent their entire duration of their career with a single franchise. You just don't see that anymore in this heyday of the NBA. So the fact that he's near the top, if not at the very top of all statistical categories, it's a shame. Just kind of John alluded to, he was in an era in the East which was dominated by Michael Jordan. 6 rings in 8 years. He was not going to be able to penetrate that, even with the strong roster he had around him at the time. But at the same time, when you're looking at this team right now, Pascal Siakam won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. So Haliburton technically wasn't even the best player on the team in the last round just to get to the finals. And if you look at the history of the conference finals MVP, which is very slim, I think this is only the 4th year of its existence. If you win the conference finals MVP and your team goes on to win the NBA championship, you are also winning the finals MVP that year. It's been the same player each time. We just saw it last year with Jaylen Brown beating out Jason Tatum on the Boston Celtics. So if history repeats itself, Pascal Siakam would likely be the finals MVP. I think he needs to be the best player in this series for Indiana to have a chance. But again, it's the Thunder we're talking about. This is, again, we're talking long shots here about the Pacers even prevailing here. But if it's Siakam, if it's Haliburton, Reggie Miller is just on a tier unto himself with the Pacers organization.
Okay, guys, before we get into the next segment, I just want to talk about what's going on at Underdog with their playoff basketball promo. With the extender, you can play your way to increasingly bigger boosts in these playoffs. So start a playoff series by using your Game 1 boost and continue boosting each subsequent game to unlock the next one. The longer the series, the bigger the boost. You're going to want to see how serious it gets when that Game 7 hits. So hop on Underdog, the best place to make picks during playoff basketball, and get started right now. You can use promo code UnderdogOS or hit that link in the description and get started for Game 1. John, OKC, the heavy favorite here, as I mentioned off the top. And Steve, you can throw up those odds again here. But OKC is a young team. The Pacers have some veteran presence here. You know, we've already talked about it. Siakam already has a ring. You know, sports books will be cheering against a Pacers win here. And other than shooting 100% for the series, in your opinion, what can the Indiana Pacers do, or what do they need to do to beat OKC and win this NBA Finals?
I don't know where to start. I mean, obviously, they're playing really well. They're going to have to shoot the ball well. But OKC has kind of been a juggernaut, and I think this is going to be Indy's toughest opponent by far, not even close. I think that if Indiana, which, you know, I call Indiana a front-running team, right? Things are going well, they'll pack you up, they'll send you home. We've seen it multiple series this year. What's going to happen when OKC hits first and you're coming home, you know, it's 1-1 or 2-1, right? Or I'm sorry, 1-1 or 2-0. How is Indiana going to respond? Because they're not really a team that I see like when they get their backs against the wall, they just punch their way out of it. So the best strategy for Indiana is to try to still win an OKC. If they can still want to put a little pressure on this young team, I think they have a chance. You know, the Thunder are almost so young, they don't even realize what they're on the cusp of. So I don't even know if the pressure is even there yet. You got one of the youngest teams in the NBA. You know, I think the Thunder are playing with house money at the moment, and Indiana is coming into like a lion's den, you know, especially if they cannot split on the road, this will be a quick series.
Let me ask you guys this, and again, I'll get both your thoughts here, but I'll start with you, Chris. If OKC does win, should NBA bettors brace themselves for what could be the NBA's newest dynasty here?
No. Just because history would suggest that. I mean, you look back at this string of, this is going to be the 7th straight unique champion in the last 7 years. It started off with my Toronto Raptors in 2019. We've had a fresh face hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy every year since. So you could have said, sure, the 2023 Denver Nuggets were going to be the next dynasty with Nikola Jokic. The core of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Holiday and Porzingis and all these guys in Boston. We just saw what happened with Jason Tatum. They're probably taking themselves out of the running for a title next year because he's going to miss most of the season. If, you know, best case scenario, he comes back for the playoffs, that's not going to be enough for Boston either. So looking at Oklahoma City, surely they have the parts to string together multiple championships. But again, in this day and age of parity where there's so many top contenders vying for the championship, it's going to be incredibly difficult for the Thunder to come back and repeat this formula again. And look, you look up and down the roster, that salary cap, they're not going to be able to afford these guys for very much longer. Like Chet Holmgren's going to command a big payday one of these days. Some of those young bench guys like Cason Wallace and Aaron Wiggins, they're going to be looking for, upticks in salary somewhere down the road. You know, Lou Dort as well, his contract's going to be coming off the books in another year. So how can you keep this core group together without overpaying, going deep into the luxury tax? At least you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the next 2 years, but you're going to have to re-sign him at some point. Hopefully Oklahoma City can maximize this core and put together multiple championship wins. But again, history would say to me, it's just not going to happen. The league is just too stacked at this point.
It's a good point, especially with the trend of a new champ, a new player, immortalized with raising the Larry O'Brien trophy there in the final. But John, maybe that means that we're due a dynasty in the league. And this OKC team, contract situation notwithstanding, they are asset rich. They've stockpiled draft picks. What are your thoughts on the chances of OKC being the new Golden State Warriors, for lack of a better comparison?
Well, the time is now. Chet and J-Dub, those contracts don't kind of mature until where they have to pay them for another couple of years. So you figure the window right now is a 2 to 3 year window. So if they can steal 2 or 3, right, or win a couple, I think that's as dynasty as you're going to get, because, as Chris alluded to, Chet's going to probably, if they get 2, Chet's going to get maxed. Jalen Williams, J-Dub's going to get maxed, right? He's all NBA. He fits under the all NBA criteria, so that technically speaking, he has another good year. They're going to have to kind of super max him or figure that out. Lou Dort's going to be up for extension. SGA, apparently, I think they're saying his deal is going to be north of $350 million. So the time is now for them to maximize, and then they'll probably have to split that thing up. And if you get a couple championships out of it, hey, look, you got like you said, your draft asset rich. You could probably do it again, right? In a different way, bring in good players and continue to kind of stay at a high level and win games and be competing for championships. But, a dynasty this day and age is tough because of the money and the aprons and that. OKC's in an envious position right now with a young team. They could probably have 2 or 3 more years, but eventually everyone from Hartenstein on is going to have to get paid big bucks, especially if they're winning at a high level.
Shai helping punch the ticket to the finals, Shai winning MVP, almost single-handedly keeping the mid-range game alive in the NBA as well. He's done a lot of the heavy lifting. And let's talk about MVP, NBA Finals MVP here. Maybe, at first look, if you are just going to back the Thunder, maybe the play is just to take SGA in MVP markets, given that it's still chalky as heck, but given that there's a better price here, at least at, FanDuel here, minus 550, minus 600 at DraftKings. BetMGM saying that 23.3% of finals MVP handle is on SGA, but their biggest liabilities are Tyrese and Pascal Siakam. Let me get your thoughts here on who you think is going to win MVP, and then maybe a guy a bit further down the odds board that might have a puncher's chance of winning the award. Chris, I'll start with you.
Look, SGA is going to win this thing. I'd be shocked if he didn't, especially if the Thunder do go on to win the NBA championship. I just don't envision a scenario where like a Chet Holmgren or a Jalen Williams outperforms SGA. The guy is averaging nearly 30 points in the playoffs. We all saw what he accomplished during the regular season. So I think it's SGA's to lose. Based on the odds leaderboard, the fact that Tyrese Haliburton is that much shorter odds than Pascal Siakam makes no sense to me. Especially like I alluded to earlier with the conference finals history, if you win that MVP and you win the championship, you are likely going to win the finals MVP. So I think Siakam's odds right now are very juicy if you do see a scenario in which Indiana can actually upset Oklahoma City. Now, I don't think that's actually going to come to fruition. But again, never say never. This team has defied the odds this entire postseason run. They were not favored to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. The odds were fairly even against the New York Knicks, and they pulverized them. My favorite pick to win the NBA championship, so I look kind of stupid on that front. So again, you can't sell the Pacers short here. It's just the Thunder are just having one of those special once-in-a-lifetime seasons, and I think SGA is going to be the catalyst for it in this best of 7 with the Pacers. So if you're looking to just make a little bit of money, go for SGA, but if you're going for that long shot bet, you could do a lot worse than Siakam.
Is it Shai or nothing in this market here, John?
I tend to agree. I guess you could sprinkle Siakam for history purposes. Hey, look, if Indiana does find a way to win this series, history says he wins the MVP. And plus 1,900, it's not a bad sprinkle, right? But yeah, I think it's SGA's. He commands the ball. He there's not really anybody close to him on his team, alpha wise, that's going to put up the stats that he puts up. It's just one of those years, man. Finals MVP, Western Conference MVP, season MVP. He's potentially going to do the sweep. If OKC can pull this thing out.
Let's get into. I mean, I gather what your picks are, who you think is going to win this trophy, but what's the best way to bet this thing? What are you looking at betting? I'll get your thoughts here, Chris. We'll start with you.
All right. So if you're just looking for my tangible pick, I think it's the Oklahoma City Thunder in 5 games. I would be shocked if it goes beyond that. But again, Indiana has surprised me this entire playoff run. So it could go 6. It could even go 7. But just based looking roster to roster, success to success, it's the Thunders to win. They were only really pushed against the Denver Nuggets. And Denver had Nikola Jokic, who is arguably the greatest player on the planet. With all due respect to Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam, they are tiers below someone of Jokic. So I am going with a little bit of a long shot here in terms of just how to get the most bang for my buck. And it's kind of a fun bet when you think about it. So the only real tangible value that I think you can get here, and I think there's a realistic shot of this connecting. I bet earlier today, I'm taking either player, either roster, someone on either roster to break the all-time NBA Finals record for points in a game, which is currently held by Elgin Baylor at 62. I got that at plus 7,000. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander actually has a realistic shot of doing this. If you look at the last 3 times he's played the Indiana Pacers, he's scored 30, 33, and 45 in his most recent outing against the Pacers. And I think this is going to be a run-and-gun series. I don't think the Thunder are going to try and slow down the Pacers whatsoever. You're going to see a lot of high-scoring games. In Indiana's backcourt, Haliburton, Naismith, Nembhard, they're not going to stop Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That dude's going to get whatever he wants. And if he even gets close to like a 50-point night, I think OKC is going to try and get him that record. 62 is very doable in this day and age. We've seen a lot of 70-point games in recent years, and this is the finals. I think SGA is going to try and make an impact. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but at plus 7,000, why not sprinkle a little bit?
A fun way to certainly bet the finals a little bit with some better value than you see on some surface level betting markets here. And what a way to close the NBA season with an Elgin Baylor name drop here on the show. John, what about you? Any creative ways, anything to get the best value with this NBA finals, considering how lopsided it is?
I was going to keep it kind of simple, minus 2.5, but let's go Thunder to win 4-1 at plus 210. I think that's a realistic chance has a realistic chance for happening. We've kind of seen this with OKC this year. They'll kind of throw a game away or they'll kind of just sleepwalk and then all of a sudden lose a game. So I do think the Pacers get one game, but I think after that the Thunder are going to roll similar to what they did last series. And so I like the 4-1 at plus 210. That's kind of the only value I could see kind of on the Thunder side, because everything else is so juiced up. So that would be what I would play.